Imagine waking up to find half of your empire missing. Your trusted governor, the one you put in charge of vital core worlds, has declared independence, dragged an entire planetary network with him, and raised your own flag against you. No alien armada, no supernova, your citizens just become a rival civilization, and now you're staring down the barrel of a civil war. It's one of the bold twists for Galactic Civilizations that came with the fourth version of the game, and one that speaks to the evolution of this franchise over its 20 years of history. But it's not the only turning point. The Galactic Civilizations franchise has featured many such shake-ups, both in terms of its lore as well as its gameplay. 4 major games in, all of them even today worth playing. Today I want to take a look at the evolution of the franchise and talk about each of the games. Also, my thanks to Stardock for sponsoring this video. Please do check out the links in the video description where you can find out a load more information. Now, another turning point of the franchise was the invention of the hyperdrive, a breakthrough that flung open the doors to the stars. In an instance, formerly isolated civilizations were thrust into a new era of interstellar travel and high-stakes competition. The galaxy that had once been sparsely populated suddenly became a bustling frontier as the Honourable Terran Alliance, that's humanity, and its alien neighbours raced to explore and colonise the unclaimed planets of the Orion Spur. From its atmospheric introduction to every new title, Galactic Civilizations has always balanced the spirit of exploration with the spectre of conflict. The franchise invites you to chart star systems, establish colonies on distant worlds, negotiate with or even outwit alien empires, and if necessary, engage in epic space wars for supremacy. All the while, a living galaxy reacts to your decisions. The series' core themes, which include forging a civilization among the stars, confronting age-old evils, and outsmarting rival leaders, really has a great blend of different types of gameplay, something that keeps you coming back and having interest in additional sessions. Now, it really is here a blend of the human and the cosmic. One moment, you're pondering trade agreements and research priorities. The next, you're marvelling at the sight of your flagship cruising past nebula towards an unknown planet, or even uncovering ancient mysteries from the long past. Despite spanning 4 main games and numerous expansions, the Galactic Civilizations narrative maintains a cohesive lore. Threads like the First Contact Wars, the Drengans scheming, and the legacy of the precursors run throughout the series, giving long-term players a sense of history and weight behind their choices. This is especially noticeable and interesting if you take the time out to return to the first game. Not only has the lore evolved and there's still threads of that here today, but, well, it's really nice to step back in time and see how the game first emerged, how the franchise itself first appeared. So yeah, newcomers too can sense the depth here. Even if you jump in straight with the latest installment, you'll find references to an expansive backstory, the hyperdrive that empowered the younger races, the Dreadlords and the Arnor, who fought eons ago, and the familiar alien species with grudges and alliances stretching back centuries. This long-running lore isn't just backstory, it actively shapes the victory conditions and random events in each game and each play session, and that ultimately lends a narrative context to the classic 4X cycle of explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. The saga began then with the Galactic Civilizations 1, which, as I said, is still available today. Released all the way back in 2003 as a modern reimagining of Stardock's earlier OS2 games, it was set in the 23rd century. The game opens with a bold act of optimism. Humanity discovers the secret of hyperdrive, and in a gesture of goodwill, it shares it freely with 5 major alien races across the galaxy. It's an altruistic move that quickly backfires. The moment faster-than-light travel becomes available to all, the delicate balance between civilization tips into a mad scramble for the galaxy's unclaimed worlds. Lore-wise, Galactic Civilization 1 plants the seeds of the franchise's overarching narrative. The game hints at ancient intrigues. For instance, the Altarians speak of prophetic visions and the legacy of a bygone precursor race. These are subtle background elements that ultimately do impact the gameplay, as you'll find various different resources and technologies that you unlock. So yeah, Galactic Civilization 1, in terms of gameplay, it really established many of the series' staples in a relatively streamlined form. Players began with a single homeworld and a few primitive ships, and from there you must explore neighbouring star systems, expand your empire by colonising planets, exploit resources to fuel your economy, and research and, of course, exterminate or perhaps even diplomatically contain any foe that threatens your interests. The first game then is definitely one that's worth returning to if you've played it in the past, or if not, it's relatively cheap at the moment, and especially during these sale periods, you'll be able to pick it up at a very low price. And yeah, even veteran players sometimes return to Galactic Civilization 1 for its brisk, no-frills take on a galactic strategy. And ultimately, this really is a blast from the past. It's like stepping back in time to a bygone era. You see all the seeds of what ultimately becomes a Galactic Civilization 4, but from an era where things looked quite different in terms of gameplay and game design. Now, Galactic Civilizations 2, also titled Dreadlords, took the solid groundwork of the first game and expanded it dramatically. Really, Galactic Civilizations 2 really shows much of what we can see today in the modern game. We've got much more of things like the 3D galaxy map where you can rotate and zoom in, all the staples that are hallmarks of modern game designs. This game came out in 2006, and yeah, it was a massive step up over the first one. Galactic Civilization 2 has a really nice campaign then, which features the Dreadlords who make a terrifying return from their long slumber, arriving just as the modern races are locked in their own struggle for dominance. The result here is somewhat of a layered narrative. Not only are the Terrans, the Drengin, the Eltarians and others vying for control, they now have to contend with the vastly superior ancient enemy who's bent on exterminating all sentient life. In terms of gameplay, there were some huge innovations here, specifically some really nice features that stuck with the franchise all the way through. The ship designer, for example. This allowed players for the first time to create custom starships piece by piece, allowing you to choose the hull designs, snapping on engines, weapons, and all the other essentials and lovely bits and pieces. Now, this wasn't just for show. Designing effective ships to counter enemies technology became a bit of a mini-game in itself. Additionally, there was also the ability to interact with the planets here, and we started seeing tile sets where you could start deploying buildings, resource management and farms, all those other things onto the planetary surfaces and start expanding your populations, your civilizations more directly, both in space as well as down on the surface of these worlds. Essentially then, the second version of the game really started zeroing in on both micromanagement as well as macro-management, and these really are hallmarks of what make the whole franchise really great 4X games. By the time Galactic Civilization 3 arrived in 2015, the gaming world and the entire 4X genre had dramatically changed, largely due to the massive evolution of gaming tech over the preceding decade. Now, Stardock rose to the challenge by making Galactic Civilization 3 a technological leap forward. Notably, this was the first game in the series built on a 64-bit engine, which then allowed for truly massive maps as well as massive fleets far beyond what the 32-bit predecessors could handle. At last, you could have dozens of civilizations, including many minor ones, vying across a gigantic galaxy without running into memory limitations. The map itself shifted from the square tiles of old to a hexagonal grid, offering a smoother movement. Galactic Civilization 3 also became the first in the franchise to officially support multiplayer. In terms of gameplay, there was a load of changes here. The ideological depth of gameplay also saw an upgrade. Galactic Civilization 3 introduced an ideology system that forced you to make ethical choices during play, shaping your civilization's cultural identity. Galactic Civilizations 3 also had a number of different expansions: Crusade in 2017, Diplomat or Intrigue in 2018, and Retribution in 2019. Of course, Galactic Civilizations 4 has been the big hitter. By this time, this release, the series had amassed not only a legacy, but also a pretty big and loyal fanbase as well. Galactic Civilizations 4 then really does feel like a culmination of threads laid over the decades. The game's lore dives deep into the precursors and their lasting impact on the galaxy's current politics, with special attention given to the Arnor, the ancient good faction, and what remains of their influence which still might be found. In fact, one of the recent expansions is pointedly titled Tales of the Arnor, and it lets players experience a campaign centered on the hidden history of the precursors, including the origins of synthetic races like the Yor. But even in the base Galactic Civilization 4 experience, players will notice callbacks, precursor artifacts to discover, temples of the Arnor, and references to the old wars in diplomacy dialogues. But Galactic Civilizations 4 isn't just content that's there merely to reminisce. It transforms the gameplay in significant ways to truly capture the feeling of ruling a sprawling galactic empire. One of the most notable evolutions of this introduction is the leaders and core worlds as central mechanics. In prior games, every planet you colonized required direct management, which could become overwhelming as your empire grew. Galactic Civilization 4 flips this concept on its head by distinguishing between core worlds, that's important planets that have their own leaders, governors and full development, and colonies, which includes minor worlds that simply feed resources to the core worlds. Now when you colonize a new planet now, it starts as a low maintenance colony that automatically sends a portion of its raw materials, minerals, research, wealth, food and culture to a designated core world. If that new world has amassed potential, like say it's an Eden-like or strategically located world, you have the option to assign a leader to it, upgrading it to a core world that you can then manage directly. This change accomplishes two things. It dramatically cuts down on late game micromanagement. You won't be stuck tweaking build queues for 50 additional planets if you don't want to, and it adds a layer of character to your empire. Each core world leader comes with a portrait, traits and attributes or different attitudes, and that means ultimately some of these might provide bonuses to your empire. A brilliant economist, for example, might boost a planet's income, or a retired admiral could improve ship constructions. But they also all have a loyalty stat that you simply cannot ignore. This is going back to where I opened the video on. Yes, loyalty is essential. It injects a bit of, old intrigue into the game. Ultimately, yes, your leaders are loyal, but only to a point. If they grow too powerful or too unhappy, they might turn on you. A governor overseeing a huge portion of your empire may start to wonder why they aren't the one in charge, and if the loyalty drops low enough, they could declare independence, taking their planets with them. This internal political drama means that expanding your empire isn't just a matter of planting flags everywhere. You need to ensure that your most trusted lieutenants remain, trustworthy. You can placate leaders with credits, assign them titles, or just keep particularly ambitious ones on a shorter leash by not giving them half the galaxy to run. And it's not just one-sided. AI civilizations, the NPC factions, also have leaders too, and clever players can exploit that. Want to destabilize an enemy empire? Target one of their governors with espionage or bribes, and you just might incite a defection or civil war that cracks your rival from within. In effect, Galactic Civilization's 4 leader system creates an inner game of politics and intrigue within the larger 4X strategy, and it makes the galaxy feel more alive and unpredictable. That's not where it all been left though. There's much more to it. The recent Tales of Arnor DLC introduced a new story-driven campaign that we've touched on. We also got Warlords, which added strategic war objectives, as well as megastructures, which enabled wonders like Dyson Spheres to enhance your civilization's power. Today then, Galactic Civilizations 4 stands as a culmination of the franchise's vision. It marries the cinematic wonder-filled tone that fans really love with the depth and freedom of a modern strategy sandbox. Now, crucially, you don't need any prior experience to enjoy Galactic Civilization 4. In fact, you can pick up any of the games in any order, and you'll be able to enjoy them without any issues and without any dependence on any of the other games. But with its more refined interface and helpful guides, if you want to jump in at Galactic Civilizations 4, it really is newcomer-friendly, and, a little bit more so than the past titles really, if we're really getting down to it. You can dive in fresh and let the game teach you the ropes, or appreciate how decades of lore and features have come together in this installment. Ultimately, the Galactic Civilizations franchise has been on a truly interesting tour and evolution over the past 20 plus years, and that means that each of the games are interesting and worth exploring in their own right. So that brings us to an end of this video, a nice overview of pretty much each of the games. Thanks for watching this all the way through. I hope you found it interesting. Do check out that link in the video description. My thanks again to Stardock for sponsoring it. I'll catch you next time, and do take care.